Now, should those implicated in massive corruption be offered amnesty in exchange for full disclosure and, of course, the return of public funds? Now, this is an idea circulating in the public domain at the moment, and corruption amnesty is a legal or it could be a political measure where a state offers a general pardon or exemption from prosecution for past acts of wrongdoing. Now, is corruption amnesty the solution to deal with South Africa and our corruption issues? So to help us discuss this, we're joined by Robert Appelbaum, who's a senior lawyer with Webber Wentzel, and we also have Karam Singh from Corruption Watch. He's head of Advocacy. Thanks so much for your time this morning, gentlemen, and welcome to Morning Live. And if I could start with you, Robert, proposing a conditional amnesty process to tackle entrenched corruption that has caused so much devastation in South Africa. What sort of corruption would we be talking about here? Is it political, bureaucratic? How exactly is this meant to look?
So, you know, if anyone had gone back to 2020 when we'd first proposed this, and we took a fair amount of flack from it, we're saying we're not politicians, and what we were saying is we had landed up in a situation then, which has only been exacerbated now, with sort of corruption totally out of control. And in the main, we're talking about economic corruption. So how one would differentiate that between political and economic, I don't know, would be very difficult, because I would think it essentially is one and the same. But it essentially, one has got to a stage then where things were out of control, where we've been made wonderful promises of effective policing and national prosecuting authorities. And between then and now, nothing has happened. It's just got worse. And if one just looks at the latest commission, oh my God, it's got worse, because those were going to be the people who were hopefully going to be fixing this for us. So you know, for me, the concept, and it's not novel to South Africa, although South Africa has a very big play in it and has been very successful in it in the past. But it is something that has worked, and we gave the example of Hong Kong, where it worked brilliantly with the then most corrupt police force in the world, today considered one of the best. Similar in Singapore prior to that. But you know, it's not, the amnesty is not bad. It's how one gives effect to the amnesty. How does one get people to seriously come, confess their crimes, tell who else was involved, pay back some of the ill-gotten gains, and then start on a new base. You know, you can add, you know, Parliament could add other things to it, such as if a politician was corrupt, not allowing them to go back into politics for a while. But we're not politicians. You know, this is written by a group of lawyers who've just woken up going, nothing's happening, it's getting worse, there are no solutions. It doesn't matter, you know, you think you're involved with the correct police, you're not. That's the history of this.
And you know, understanding what you are saying to us there, Robert, and yes, it may make sense, but Karam, hugely controversial, I would imagine. As I'd indicated in my introduction, South Africans have really suffered, you know, and the poorest of the poor have really been at the brunt of the corruption that we've seen in South Africa. So how do you then make this very controversial idea palatable to South Africans, especially as far as accountability is concerned? Because where's the accountability when we are offering people amnesty?
Thanks so much, Sakina. I'm very happy to discuss this topic, because we need to be innovative and we need to think about new ideas about how we get out of the difficult situation that we've found ourselves in now for decades. But I think I need to be clear that I don't see in this moment any kind of idea of a broad-based or amnesty process really being a viable solution to get us out of the situation. You know, as you said, it's controversial. There are some previous examples of them, but I mean, most of the previous examples where amnesties have been put in place have been ones that didn't have the public support, were not seen as legitimate, and were kind of seen as kind of a whitewashing. So you could imagine a kind of Zondo Commission process where people have been asked to come forward, give testimony, and then on the basis of that testimony, they're given amnesty. That wasn't the deal at Zondo. We're still living in the wake of the Zondo Commission. We're still living in the wake of countless numbers of findings and recommendations. The recommendations of the National Advisory Council Against Corruption. I don't think in any of those forums that have looked really in a deep way at the systemic corruption challenges that we face, that the issues of that the proposition of some kind of a broad amnesty was really considered as a viable option. You'd have to really build public support. It would have to be very limited and targeted. It would have to be on the basis whereby we could ensure that there's real asset recovery. And then there would have to be other consequences. So, people would need to be barred from being able to take up further positions in public life. We've got a challenge around the blacklisting of people that do business with government who are found to be engaged in procurement fraud. We need to see that kind of blacklisting. So a kind of amnesty that just gets plopped on the top, that isn't as a result of some kind of broad engagement, a broad kind of new kind of national dialogue and conversation, is not going to be seen as legitimate, and it's just going to, I think, further erode the trust that people already have in the institutions, because in a way it'll be an admission that the prosecution services and the police are just not up to being able to do what's required.
And picking up from that, Robert, wouldn't it just send the wrong message? A message, for example, that corruption actually does pay and that you can actually negotiate the consequences thereof?
So I disagree. So first of all, I need to respond as to what was said. So nowhere have we suggested a whitewash at all. It's not a whitewash. So if one looks, let's leave aside the best example, which was Hong Kong. When Pravin Gordhan was appointed as head of SARS, he walked into a situation in South Africa, the new South Africa, where the tax and exchange control fraud was out of control. Billions upon billions had left South Africa. Everyone saw tax as a maybe, didn't have to do this. And he decided that, cabinet decided, but run by him, that how does one stop this? It's not a nice to have. It's so his version, and okay, admittedly related to tax and exchange control, was to put together a proper investigating unit, very small, very effective. And one of the techniques they came up with, and I recall the person who actually proposed that to him, was to choose very high flying people in each community, and who they could prove, and they had proven, had breached exchange control and taken money, billions of rands out of South Africa, and weren't paying taxes and were playing tax games. And he went after, not everyone to start, he went after very well-known individuals. But when he got to, and he went through every society I could think of, I was a young attorney, and when he got to the single most important soccer boss in South Africa, and when he arrested him, everyone sat up and said, oh my God, this is for real. But he had a proper team. That then led to people having rules. And I'm not suggesting that this is fuzzy. I'm not suggesting what all of those rules are. My only rule is come, confess your crime, confess who else was involved with you in the commissions of your crimes, and then pay back. Now, I was attacked 5 years ago by Shamida Batoyi because of the payback. I'm not saying Parliament sets it. Would 100% be good? Be wonderful. Would 50% be good? Hey, I don't know. I'm not in Parliament. All I'm saying is we've got to a situation. Nothing is being done. There is nothing. When you sit and watch the Commission every day on television, all we're doing is putting our hair out and going, well, is there anyone in national prosecuting, the Hawks, in the police we can trust? Any single person. So maybe there are, and I believe there are some of those. So we use them.
So what would the suggestion be then? Would this be for certain categories of corruption? Because in the case where people have died, for example, as a direct consequence of corruption, how do we then weigh this up? Because how do we then prioritize, restitution over prosecution in that instance, Robert? How would we go about that?
So I'm not suggesting that murder is part of this. I'm suggesting essentially financial crimes. Corruption is a financial crime. If someone has been injured or hurt, well, the perpetrators must face the full book. But I'm saying if the perpetrator has not gone that far, it is, I mean, we've got great examples of people who've stolen billions and continues to steal billions to this very day. If we were able to get them, and you need to prosecute a few of them. We can't, right now, the scattergun approach is never going to work. We don't have manpower, and we don't have trusted manpower. So let's find the trusted manpower. Let's go and choose those individuals who are most egregious. Let's go investigate them thoroughly. Put them, we all want them. I desperately want them in orange overalls. Everyone does. I was accused last time of, no one's going to wear orange overalls. Well, some will. That's how you get everyone's attention. It's the stick. You need it. The carrot and the stick. You need the stick. So we don't. So if we aren't coming with a stick, then we aren't going to get anyone to confess.
Karam?
No, I mean, I think Robert's right, and you do need a carrot and a stick approach. This is the whole idea around having the prosecuting authority having powers to be able to do plea bargaining. I've written in the past in support of the idea of a deferred prosecution agreement in the context of a corporation. You can't put a corporation in prison, but if you look at the ABB settlement that the MPA negotiated, you got a significant restitution, a significant amount of money paid back on the basis that ABB would not engage in this kind of conduct again. There wouldn't be any further prosecutions. So I'm not disputing the idea that we need creative solutions. We need to empower the prosecuting authorities to be able to use various tactics. Robert's right to talk about tax and SARS. The classic example being that of Al Capone. Al Capone was brought down on tax fraud, not on being a mafioso. So, the law enforcement needs all the tools available at their disposal in order to be able to uncover these networks, to be able to recover money, for there to be consequences. And I think in that context, we can talk about how an amnesty may or may not work. But I think given the current lay of the land, given the current distrust, given the fact that it hasn't really properly been considered by those that have been tasked with trying to take us to a new place in terms of anti-corruption. I'm talking about the work of the NACAC. I'm talking about the work of the Zondo Commission. It is a premature proposition, but it's certainly something worth debating because we need innovation and we need new ideas in order to turn the corner.
30 seconds, Robert. Karam says it's premature. Do you think that South Africa is ready for this right now?
100%. We've waited. Premature was 5 years ago when I raised it because I was told what wonderful things were coming down the track. 5 years later, zero done. In fact, it's got much, much worse. Is it premature? No. Should we be doing it? Yes. Do we need to have trusted people? Do you need a strong leader responsible for it? I think that's where he's going. We've got to find that person. I don't know who that is. I don't know who I trust anymore. So, to find the team to think through, to implement, to take it to Parliament. It's going to go through Parliament. So I don't think it's premature. And if we can't wait longer, what are we waiting for? What's going to change between now and next year? Nothing.
We need to take this up and take it further because I don't think that was enough time for this conversation, but I'm glad we started on it. And I can already see the questions about free passes for those who are politically connected, the powerful in our society. Robert shaking his head. I tell you what, we need to pick up on this again. But thank you so much, gentlemen. Robert Appelbaum, senior lawyer with Webber Wentzel, and Karam Singh, consultant at Corruption Watch, rather the head of Advocacy and Good Governance Africa, speaking to us about amnesty for corruption. Now, what do you make of that idea? Let us know your thoughts at Morning Live SABC.